So I've been a Tableau developer for a long time, but over the last few months, my company's been testing out Power BI, and I'm really curious to get into it and to understand a little bit more about its capabilities. When I tested it out several years ago, it really was a clunky platform and I didn't like it that much. But over the last few months, I've really enjoyed getting to know some of the new features and understanding how to use it. So I'd like to do a little bit of a comparison between Tableau and Power BI and give you some impressions about which one I think is best. As far as data connections go, to be honest, they're pretty similar. I develop in the data warehouse as well, so typically what I pull into my workbook, whether it's a Power BI workbook or a Tableau, is already pretty well baked. It doesn't need a lot of data manipulation, but both Tableau and Power BI have a ton of connectors. There's a lot of places they can pull data from. The one thing that I do think that Power BI does really well is that it integrates with the rest of the Microsoft suite. So there's a lot of options for automation that you don't get with Tableau unless you pay extra for Tableau Server or Tableau Prep or one of the other tools that goes along with it. In particular, you can pull data in through Microsoft Power Query into Power BI, which allows you to do a bunch of manipulation right in the query instead of having to do it in the data warehouse. It's not my favorite way to change around data, but it does help clean up spreadsheets and things like that if you happen to get something that looks janky. In this case, I'm not going to give the win to Power BI just because I really like the fact that you can do joins and things within the Tableau data source. I know you can do them in Power BI as well, but in Power BI you're limited to joining on only one field and it's kind of complicated and a little bit clunky, whereas Tableau really works like a data warehouse, which is just the way my mind works, so for me, that's a little bit better. Again, both Tableau and Power BI have a ton of great visualization options, so if you're building a dashboard, you'll definitely find some things that you can use. The challenge is that with Tableau, some of them you get kind of hacky to get to. Now, there are ways to work around them. I've certainly found a lot over the years, and I'm pretty comfortable working around a lot of things to try and get to the features that I want within Tableau. But Power BI has the option to add in visuals from other places. It has a lot more options to start with. You can add in visuals that you download from the internet that come with code and things like that. So really, gonna have to give this one to Power BI just in terms of the number of options and the ability to extend it with things that other people have built. As far as calculations go, I really like calculations in Tableau and I really don't like calculations in Power BI. Doing calculations in Power BI sometimes feels like taking a step back into Excel. It's really not quite as intuitive, at least in my opinion, as some of the calculations in Tableau once you get used to how it works. That said, that might be an advantage if you happen to be coming from Excel and you're comfortable working in that sort of an environment. Power BI is a really easy step forward, and DAX is a really flexible language once you get into it, and it does feel more Excel-like. So maybe it's just my bias. I do prefer calculations in Tableau. I think they lay out easier and I think they look a little bit cleaner. But certainly DAX has a lot of flexibility, and anything you can do in one, you can definitely do in the other one. So this one's kind of a tie. As far as analysis goes, I really like the way Tableau does analysis. I don't think Power BI does it nearly as well. For a quick diving into a data set and trying to find some things that are going on, I much prefer Tableau. You can throw a couple of things up on a worksheet. You can easily change around the visualization type, add averages, and add various other analytical calculations that I just am not comfortable doing in Power BI without adding in a bunch of calculated fields and things like that. Certainly the ability to drill up and drill down, the ability to add like 2 layers of nested fields to tables, even 3-4 layers of nested fields to a table is really helpful in Tableau when it comes to analysis, even though it's not necessarily something that you might want to put on a dashboard. I do find that really helpful, and I struggle to do the same things in Power BI. I just find Tableau much easier to do my analysis in. So this one goes to Tableau. As far as laying out dashboards go, let's face it, laying out a dashboard in Tableau is a pain in the ass. Layout containers are a nightmare, stuff moves around. It's really hard to get things to line up properly, whereas in Power BI, it's just drag and drop and everything snaps together. It's super easy to lay out nice dashboards where everything aligns and looks neat and tidy, and it's so much easier to make them stable than it is through Tableau. So this one goes to Power BI. As I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I often get questions from people who want to understand which version or which tool they should start using next. And my answer is normally whichever one you have access to and whichever one you think you can stick with. And in that case, I think Power BI is a winner because Power BI is so accessible. A lot of companies already have access to Power BI, and so their associates or their employees can begin digging into data and trying to understand it really easily. Tableau can be a big expense. If you're coming from an Excel background, as I mentioned, Power BI is definitely a better tool. If you're coming from a SQL or a data warehouse background, to me, Tableau makes a lot more sense. Tableau is much more intuitive. It works much more like SQL. Some of the functions are much more SQL-like than they are in Power BI. So it really depends on where you're coming from, what the learning curve is going to look like, but certainly a lot more people have access to Power BI than have access to Tableau. I think both are pretty similar. It's really hard to determine a clear winner here. If you're doing a lot of dashboarding and laying out dashboards and making that workflow super smooth is really important to you, then Power BI is definitely a way to go. If you're doing a lot of exploratory analysis, then Tableau might be a better tool for you, just because it has more analytical functions out of the box. And Tableau forces you to use good visualization practices, which is a really good, helpful thing when you're doing exploratory analysis and trying to find new trends within a particular data set. If you did enjoy this video, then please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to see you back for another video. We talk about Tableau, we talk about Power BI, we also talk about data literacy and data storytelling and just how you can communicate better with data. Look forward to seeing you soon.